what we did have was very low churn. So one of the factors that helped us get the premium, everybody building SaaS eventually realizes that churn is the cap that your company has on growth. Eventually, the churn, which is a relative number, grows to the point where it meets the absolute numbers of growth. Because we had a very low churn, less than 1% month over month, that definitely helped us start the conversation from a very good position. The other element, growth, was very consistent year over year. I think we more than doubled 3 years straight. That in combination with the low churn and high profit margins, which was the last big item there. We were over 50% profit margins when we sold. This is a firm that had multiple other portfolio companies similar to us. So they had a pretty good idea of what a successful outcome would look for them. And we kind of filled all those criteria.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast, where every week we hear an amazing story from a serious founder who built a valuable software company and did it without big funding. I'm your host, Greg Head, and this week my guest is Eran Galperin, the former CEO and founder of Gymdesk. Gymdesk is gym management software, from run your business practice management, billing and payments and scheduling to customer acquisition, website marketing, all of that for martial arts studios and now gymnastics and yoga studios. They're expanding out. Eran started this in his spare time as a former CTO and technical founder, grew it up and sell it for an exit that is publicly noted as a $32.5 million exit for him, cash out type of exit in 2024 to a private equity buyer. And he stepped down as CEO 7 months later and now lives in Japan. It's a crazy story with an amazing result with Eran. Hi, Eran. Welcome to the Practical Founders Podcast.
Happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, it's early morning in Dallas. It's late in the evening where you are. Where are you today, Eran?
So I'm currently located in Tokyo, Japan, and it's 10 p.m. So early evening for me. For some, it would be pretty late. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and you didn't randomly appear there. You've had a long journey, and we'll talk about that. But what is it about Japan that made you and your wife move there?
It's a question I get often.
Yeah.
When people find out that I live in Japan. And there's many reasons, but the crux of it is that me and my wife, we met in LA and later we moved to Austin, Texas. We were thinking about starting a family. I had some health issues that I had to deal with the insurance situation in the US. This is pre-exit.
Yeah.
And I got to think, it's like, if we have serious health problems or our kids or whatever, is this really the best place to do it? I grew up in Israel that has a public healthcare system, and I'm used to those things just being taken care of. It's not the situation in the US, even if you're making good money. We started looking at a few different options just to see if there's a good place to move into. I have a history with Japan, previously received VC funding from a Japanese VC in a different lifetime. My wife is Japanese American. That definitely contributed. And we looked at a few countries in Europe, but Japan really stood out as a place that, first of all, does have what we're looking for with regards to the healthcare system, and also it's very safe and quiet.
Yeah.
But Tokyo in particular just has so much on offer. I love living in LA. It's one of my favorite cities. And if I were to move somewhere permanently, I would like to have similar level of access to things.
Yeah.
And Tokyo is definitely one of those cities that compares favorably. We both took a couple of trips before moving here, and eventually we took it's kind of a start of a new adventure. The last one before we completely settled down. Moved here in 2022, and we love it here. The quality of life is just incredible.
So that was before you sold your company, Gymdesk,
Yes.
and we'll get into that as well. So, yeah, it's part of this path that you had as this independent, bootstrapped, profitable, practical founder, even before you sold Gymdesk.
That's correct.
That's awesome. Okay, well, let's get into it here. You had a career building software, and then you created Gymdesk, which you grew, built, and sold. 2024, you sold most of it, almost all of it, I would say, to growth equity, buy and hold type investors, or that kind of thing. What is Gymdesk and who is it for? And why did the world need it at the time?
Yeah, so Gymdesk, originally called Martial Arts on Rails, was a product that I came up combining my background in building software products and with my personal hobby, which was training in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I was just after trying to build a VC backed company, a digital goods marketplace that raised some VC funding and eventually shut down after running out of money.
So you had the
My
VC funding, Silicon Valley style experience that
Yeah,
it
which I thought
hit the usual
was
fate, the typical fate.
yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
that which what I thought earlier that this is the path that I wanted. After going through it once, I was like, you know what? This is actually not the best fit for different types of companies, and ours included, especially because if you're not on that hyper growth path,
Yeah.
you're spending way more than you're making.
Yeah.
Eventually, you shut down just because you ran out of money, not because the product or company itself is not good. So
Yeah.
I had some time to do some thinking. My previous co-founder received an offer to join the accelerator that invested in us, 500 stars.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, it was clear to me that I'm going on this path alone. So I had more freedom in choosing how to do it. And I really wanted to build something bootstrap. I know VC funding and just doing research, B2B SaaS as a business model really appealed to me as a consistent, predictable, revenue generating business model. So the question was, okay, where to build it in? My natural inclination at the time, I was very involved in training jujitsu. I would train 5, 6 times a week. I had some insights on the industry and how gyms operated, even though I initially didn't want to go with this specific product idea because there were some large incumbents in the
Yeah,
space.
everybody already had one. There were some big guys. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody basically already had one, and there's some massive, 200 million in ARR companies in the space. Like, how could I compete by myself? Everybody that I spoke to just said that they hated what they used. So I decided to give it a shot. They all told me, it's like, if you build something, let us know. We'll give it a
Ah.
try. And I decided to do that. So I built a gym management software company initially targeted at martial arts schools. That means handling signups and memberships, attendance tracking, some basic marketing tools, website management, lead capture, and payments, which is one of the most important things for those businesses to run. Launched it at the beginning of 2016. Very basic, maybe naive version of what I thought a gym would need to run their business. And then took quite a while to figure out what they actually needed. It was a slow ramp up of around 4 years to where we started seeing actual product market fit. There's actually a specific point in at the beginning of 2022 that I can point to that's when we hit product market fit. And then we started growing and hit us a wall almost immediately with COVID, which
Yep.
started in March 2020 and affected our industry to a very large extent. A lot of gyms had to shut down for at least a few months. Some never reopened. Definitely, a lot of them were reaching out. We need to suspend our membership. We need to maybe close our account. And yet, we weathered that storm. In some ways, we built a stronger relationship with some of our customers because we adapted. There were a bunch of different rules back then, if you remember, about gathering, especially in this context. Yeah, max of 5 or 10 people in the same place. We implemented everything to support that. And in 2021, we started once again seeing strong growth that continued consistently for 21, 22, and 23, positioning us to be able to having talks about selling the business in 24. And yeah, I ended up exiting at the mid of 24, May 24. I completed an acquisition by a private equity firm called Five Elms. And
Good.
I stayed on for about a year and a half. I eventually moved on completely from the day to day in October last year. And now I'm building a new business here in Japan. This is where I'm at.
Okay, well, that is a wonderful 5-minute overview. I know you could do the 5-hour, the 5-second, version of that and accordioning in and out. But what an adventure that is hidden in that. It sounds like a straight line, Eran, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it never felt like I was aiming anywhere specific. And to be honest, the first 4 years, I wasn't even living off of the product. I launched at the beginning of 2016. And after about half a year, I realized that, yeah, I have
Still
no
quit your
idea
day
how
job.
to acquire.
Right, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I did. I wasn't working. I realized that I would need to find a day job because I have no idea how to acquire customers.
yeah,
So I ended up getting a job as a CTO of a mid-sized e-commerce company in LA, and I worked there for 3.5 years while continuing to build the product at nights and over the weekends, and sometimes, taking long breaks because it just wasn't a good fit for the schedule. So
yeah,
definitely, it took longer than maybe it should have had,
yeah,
but at the same time, it gave the product a really good time to fully bake, and
yeah.
I think that actually contributed to it being a success later.
I agree. And some of those things can't be forced with funding and time pressures and add more people. And if you just had more engineers, we'll talk about that as well. That's an interesting paradox. It's not as obvious to the outside world, but practical founders are familiar with that. So your software, did you start on the, let's say, the practice management, run your business side, members, payments, schedules, right? Running it, or did you start on the get more members and keep more members, marketing, member acquisition side, the two sides of run your
Yeah.
business and CRM or something like that? I know your software has both now. Did it always have both in it?
So it's an interesting question because it's really hard. Right now, it seems like it's cleanly separated. But when I just started, I just looked at all of it as just business management,
Yeah.
right? And some of those were very basic. For example, the website feature was extremely basic. It was also 2016, so the expectations of
Yeah.
people from those tools definitely
Yeah.
evolved over time. But what we did have is you should be able to sign up members, charge them on a recurring basis, and manage their training. I felt like that was the crux of it.
Yeah.
At least this is what I experienced as a customer at the gyms that I trained in, right?
Right.
As I started getting my first customers, I learned about other facets of running the business that I didn't experience as a customer. So my
Yeah.
naive view of what a gym business would need to run their business is obviously completely different than what a gym actually knows because they actually run their business. So yeah, building up that context and knowledge base took a long time and a lot of conversations and sessions with customers. And to be honest, even now, 10 years after, even though I'm no longer actively involved, I do stay updated, and we still run into use cases that we haven't seen before. It's
Yeah.
endless.
Well, what an amazing story, and we'll start to pick that apart there because you did a lot of different things. Your version of the practical founder story, which is different for everybody, and now you're on the other side of it, and you're starting another software company. We'll get into that one as well. Can you say? I know it's public, but why don't you say how much the company was valued for when you sold a majority of it, and maybe we could talk a little bit about your exit before we hear
Yeah,
more about
so
your
I,
journey.
I
Yeah.
can't say the enterprise value. Unfortunately, all of those transactions have an NDA that say
Yeah.
exactly what you can and can't say. But I can say that the cash component was $32.5 million, dollars, some of which went to an accelerator called Tiny Seed
Yes.
that I participated in. They had
Yeah.
about 10% equity. And yeah, the rest, I also had a broker who participated in the deal.
Yeah.
And the government took its stake. Let's say
Yeah.
I was left with around 24 when all was said and done, and that was a life-changing amount for me, for sure.
Wow, that's the practical founder math. It was founder scale exits, not VC scale exits there. And then you stayed on for a little bit. Did you transition out of being CEO pretty quickly, or did you hang on for a while?
Yeah, it took a while. We started recruiting the executive team after the acquisition, which, by the way, was an extremely interesting process for me. I was never involved in like high leverage executive recruiting before. I learned a ton
Mm.
from that process. The CEO was the longest recruitment process that we ran, and I think it took about 7 months for the
Yeah.
new CEO to come on board. And there were a few additional months in which both of us were operating
Yeah.
together at that capacity before he felt completely on board that he was able to take over. And I stayed on as CPO, Chief Product Officer, for another year.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
So that
I
was
was
part of
still
your deal, Iran, which is we need to find a CEO. Either I'm tired or I don't want to do it in your world.
yeah.
Let's have somebody else run this.
The private equity firm asked me, what is my plan post exit? Am I interested in continuing on as CEO and growing the company? And I told them that, to be completely honest, one of the reasons I'm selling is because of burnout that I've been carrying for years. And I would be happy to, at least for now, step down as CEO and let somebody else deal with the endless fires that come up basically every week. It's like this in every company. There's
Yeah.
always something,
Hmm.
and it falls down to the CEO. And in my opinion, founder CEOs take it more personally. It
Hmm.
just weighs heavier on them
Hmm.
because their brand and in some ways, their personality is tied to the business that they built. So
Uh-huh.
when things happen, some customer
Yeah.
is taking it out on us on social media, or suddenly our payment infrastructure is having hiccups. Yeah, I would get stressed out by those things because I'm a founder CEO and not just a professional CEO. So I preferred somebody else to be a buffer for me and not having to deal with that anymore. Yeah.
Well, it is one of the ironies of the game. It's that intensity and that identity and that super caring and
Yep.
attachment and all of that stuff that maybe normal people think is unhealthy. That's what made this thing. That was one of your magic tricks that made the thing go. And
For
then
sure.
it gets bigger, more employees, more customers, more partners, investors, right? You got all these mouths to feed and care for, and all problems multiply and so forth. You were looking at this equation and saying, I can't tone down my intensity, I can't care a little less, right, to deal with this.
The thing is, I always thought that if I just hire for the next level up, then I wouldn't have to do as much. And time after time, I found that out to not be the case. And people are still coming to me, this time with higher level issue, but they're still coming to me.
Oh,
And I see this now with our existing CEO that complains to me about sometimes the lack of
yeah,
agency of
yeah.
some of the VPs, and the VPs complain about lack of agency of some of the employees. And
No.
yeah, I remember this, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to step down from that role.
Right. And it is a classic founder thing. We have super agency. We're going to do it all
Yep,
and we're crazy. We're going to do the
exactly.
abnormal thing, right? And then we find out what normal people really will do out there and all of that, and including normal customers out there that have whatever normal unreasonable expectations and all of that. How many employees did it grow to by 2024 when you sold it?
So when we started the process, I think we were 13, and by the time we sold, we were already 16.
Yeah.
And I believe the company now crossed 50. So
Okay.
significant growth since then. Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the reasons for investment is the, start to staff up and maybe take the pressure off, right? That lean craziness and so forth. About how much in revenue was it in 2024 at that time?
It reached 3 million in annual recurring at the end of 23. And that's when the sell price and all the metrics were kind of set. By the way, that's something that I didn't realize, that, the process can take a while, but the valuation and everything is set at the beginning, right? So you can continue growing during, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's the
That's a
nature of
little
the
insurance for
deal.
everybody to make up for the
Yeah.
stuff they find. Oh crap, contract
It only
deal. Yeah.
works though in one way, because if you stop growing during,
Yes. Yeah.
they
They win as
can
well.
pull out their offer, right?
Yeah.
But it normally does not increase during
Yeah.
the sale process. Yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by Fullscale. Fullscale gives you dedicated senior engineers in the Philippines who are vetted, employed, and supported by Fullscale. They integrate directly with your team so you can move fast and scale in days, not months. They have over 300 active engineers with a 95% retention rate who are trusted by companies across SaaS, fintech, healthcare, and enterprise. Fullscale founder Matt Watson joined us twice on this podcast to talk about his previous practical SaaS founder exits and how AI is changing product development right now. Head to fullscale.io/product-driven for a free copy of his best-selling book, Product Driven, with practical strategies to stop wasting dev cycles and build products customers actually love. Now back to the show. You got your 10x out of it, let's say, as a cash out exit. So it was more than 10x. So in 2024, that wasn't COVID era super valuations, right? That we see right now were crazy overvaluations, over expectations, in the investment game. And there's a lot of stuck founders now, but that was a premium. So
Yeah.
you must have been growing profitably, right? And
Yeah.
run your business sticky software. A lot of private equity, growth equity, love that because you install it, and if they like it, you get a little piece of payments. You could sell more stuff. Churn is really low, and it's a foundation for a lot of other things in that industry. So is that how they were thinking about it? Which is, oh, here's a gem that isn't too big yet. Let's pay a premium for us and grow this to 50 million or whatever
Yeah.
their expectation is. Is that how
Yeah.
Five Elms thought about it, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, there's a combination of factors there. And leading up to the sale, I was maybe fortunate to have a lot of inbound from private equity. So I got to speak to a lot of different firms. Over that time, I basically realized what makes them tick. And I gave my pitch so many times, it became so refined. So by the time when we got to the sale, I knew exactly what levers to push it. And some of it, it's not just that I knew, it's things that the business possessed, somewhat fortunately. And I'm going to explain. So one of those things is churn. Selling to gyms, you're in the SMB category.
Yeah.
Even though now we're starting to talk with bigger associations, so you can
But you
consider.
sold to the smaller martial arts gyms that we all see in the States here, in shopping malls, right?
Yep.
And,
Yep.
cars come up and they've got one person that owns it, maybe a couple of other team members or
Yep.
something like that. This like boutique or size or whatever, very small business.
Yeah, we definitely started there, and over time we expanded and increased our
Yeah.
ACV, medium-sized gyms or small chains of 3 to 5 locations, and eventually all the way to larger associations of hundreds of locations.
Oh, great.
But definitely still, each one of those is small, even micro business. P definitely has a preference for enterprise customers, which we didn't have. What we did have was very low churn. So this is one of the factors that helped us get the premium. Everybody building SaaS eventually realizes that the churn is the cap that your company has on growth, right? Eventually, the
Mhm.
churn, which is a relative number, right?
Yes.
It grows to the point where it meets the absolute numbers of growth. And
I call that the churn
um,
ceiling, right? If you have a
yeah,
3% churn, at some point,
yep,
you're going to have 1,000 customers leave every month, and you have to sell
exactly,
1,001 to get one new customer. Yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And because we had the very low churn, less than 1% month over month,
Oh, yeah.
that definitely helped us start the conversation from a very good position. The other element, as you mentioned, growth was very consistent year over year. I think we more than doubled 3 years straight. That in combination with the low churn and high profit margins, which was the last big item there. Lean team, 13 people at the start of the sale. We were over 50% profit margins when we sold.
Yeah.
And this is a firm that had multiple other portfolio companies similar to us. So they had a pretty good idea what a successful outcome would look for them, and we kind of filled all those criteria.
And you didn't have to
So
sell. So they could see a 50% profit
yeah,
margin for the founder, and they could see steady growth, and they could see that in 2 years, it's going to be 2 or 3 times or 4 times bigger. and the thing is drifting uphill. So let's get it now. Let's pay a little bit of a premium
Yeah.
now, and then grow into the valuations. And they could sell a 20, $30 million business for probably better multiples even
Yep.
today, that has so sticky and strategic and so forth in a very large market. So this isn't, I don't know how many martial arts
There's about
businesses are there here.
50,000 just
Yeah,
in the US.
right.
Um,
And it's global.
and at that point, we grew outside of the martial arts vertical.
Of course.
We rebranded from Martial Arts and Rails to Gymdesk. A lot of our new
Is that why you
customers were
rebranded, changed the name, or was it
yes,
because you kinda
yes.
had a
So
funky name and it was a simpler name? Yeah.
over time, we would get different types of businesses like
Oh,
yoga
okay.
studios and gyms. And eventually, one of those customers, they reached out, they had some questions. I got on a call with them, and they told me that, yeah, we basically tried you as the last resort. The name Martial Arts on Rails, we didn't think was for our business, right?
Mhm.
It seemed completely out of scope here, but
Yeah.
we tried everybody else and they were so bad. We're like, we got to try this one. It looks good. And they fell in love. But I got a very clear signal that, yes, I need to rebrand. I was thinking about it for a while, but having
And
that
this
conversation,
was this in the very early days before you quit your day job, or in the growth
no, no, no,
years
this
when it was,
was
yeah.
in 21. I had this conversation and I'm like, yeah, you know what? By the end of the year, we need to rebrand into something that's more inclusive to those types of businesses. Coming up with a good name and an available domain is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Luckily, by then we had enough revenue that I could pay a little bit of a premium for a domain. Was
How
able
much did
to
you pay for a
obtain.
domain? Let's just,
I
compare
think it
notes.
was 5,000 at the time. It seemed
Oh,
like a
okay.
massive amount
Yeah, I
to me,
know.
but it was. I felt like this is the perfect name. It's like Gymdesk.
Yeah.
It says exactly what it does. And at the beginning of 2022, we rebranded for a while. The top left of the website said Gymdesk, formerly Martial Arts and Rails, so people would associate. But that was definitely
That was pretty early on in your journey. It's actually difficult to rebrand later in the journey. People
yeah.
always remember what it was before and so
Yeah,
forth. Yeah.
it's funny because years after, there's some people that still reach out
Of
and refer
course.
to us as MA on
Yeah.
Rails, which is the acronym that we used to use. It's like, oh yeah, MA on Rails team. And it's like, yeah, that's like 3 years out of, but it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it,
So selling to, let's say, micro gyms in the martial arts, the very small businesses, owner
yeah,
operated, all of that. These people who really care, and you didn't come out of that industry, but you understood it and you cared about them so much
yeah.
to learn from them. But this isn't enterprise sales led. It isn't even marketing led with a demo in there, which is most practice management, because it's a pretty big software and people are going to run their business on this. They want to talk to somebody. You did this even today, smaller price. I'm sure the pricing has gone up in the last couple of years since the transition, but even today, it's like $75 a month to get started, and
Yeah.
$100 plan. It is not. Do you even have $500 per location plans now?
So the way it scales up is based on the number of members, which
Ah,
was my initial approach. It's actually pretty common in this segment, and
yeah,
I think it
yeah,
makes perfect sense because
yeah,
the revenue of the business is very correlated to the number of members they have. So yeah, we do have plans if you have 1,000 members. I remember that at some point we had a gymnastics gym that had 10,000 members in each location. Those gymnastics gyms are definitely we had custom plans for those. And now with some of the bigger associations that we have, they need some customizations and things of that nature, and
yeah.
that's priced as an enterprise contract would be. So yeah, the pricing on the website is for those smaller businesses, and from there we have the conversations to understand exactly what they need. By the way, another big component that helped with the multiple and the growth potential of the business is payments, which is something I think a lot of
Yes.
founders are not familiar
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
But running the payments for the business allows you to eventually, once you reach a certain volume, to get a certain level of profit share from the payment providers.
Right.
And as you have more volume, you can get a bigger share of that. and it compounds, right? Your
Right.
volume grows, but also your share of the volume grows
Yeah.
as a percentage wise. And the plan is to have it be more than 50% of the
Yeah.
revenue of the business in a couple of years.
So when did you add payments? Was that early on in this journey or was that
Yeah,
after
that
the
was
acquisition?
one of
Yeah.
the happy decisions that I made at the very beginning. Started with Stripe and eventually added multiple payment providers. And it was very underdeveloped for, let's say, the first 4 or 5 years of the business. But as the volume reached a certain scale, I started getting inbound from the payment providers like, oh, we should talk about profit share because
Yeah.
each one of them wanted more of the volume.
Yeah.
And that's how I started to learn about the payments world. One of the private equity firm that I talked to leading up to the sale, it's not one that acquired us, but they have their own payments division.
Yes.
So the appeal for them is like, we will acquire you and we will put you on our payments rails. And this synergy is worth a lot to us. Even
Yeah.
though we didn't end up selling to them, they made it clear to me that they will pay a premium just because of the payments element.
So
Yeah,
payments-oriented companies will go acquire customers that will increase the volume of their payments, right? Because they have
exactly,
higher margins.
exactly. Yeah.
That's one of the ways out there. So did you do demos of this software to
Oh, okay.
martial
So
arts, owners that said, "I've been using this for 10 years and I hate it, but I wanna get to it." How did you go to market, or do that
yeah,
conversion?
so with this company, in prior companies, I was usually the technical side of the business, kind of offloading the customer management and business aspects to a
Yeah.
co-founder, whoever. And this was the first time that I had to face all of that head on. But my inclination was always to try and solve it as much as possible with the product, right? If somebody would reach out and say, you know, uh, help me do XYZ, instead of explaining over and over, it's like, okay, let's get on a call. I'll walk you through how to set it up. I would go back to the product. It's like, I need to figure out what is missing here because to me, it's like obvious what to do.
Yeah, the root problem, right.
And I had a complete mental shift with this company. I used to be like, yeah, the customer is stupid. I don't understand how they can't figure it out. But I finally had that mindset flip where I'm like, yeah, if they can't figure it out, there must be something missing in the product. And for years of this constant feedback loop, we got to the point where I'm able to convert a very high percentage of trials. It was over 40% of free trials were converting to a paid account
Without a
with,
demo touch,
without
without
a
a sales
demo.
okay, yeah.
Even though at some point we did add a light demo, it's not a sales demo, but people that wanted to get help with setting up the account, they will schedule with our customer service team and they would just show them how to use certain elements. That's another thing that I figured out eventually. As much as I pushed to solve
Mhm.
everything with the product, I
No touch.
understood that some people just want that one connection with a human being instead of
Yeah.
just through the software, and that's completely fine as well. So that was another unlock for me, just letting go of the
Yeah. Uh-huh.
conception that everybody would eventually get it. But we did not have a single salesperson at the time of the sale when when I exited the business, and now we have I don't want to say a large sales team, but we definitely have a sales team that deals with certain accounts that need that motion, and also to push forward the bigger enterprisey initiatives. But yeah, no demo. Try to make everything as smooth as possible through the product, and we continue to invest in it. So it was constantly being updated and better. Yeah,
Improved, yeah.
even after the sale, I did a complete overhaul of our onboarding process because the nature of every product is it starts simple and customers ask for certain things which seem so obvious and you want to add it in. And before you know it, your product is not so simple. And now new customers are complaining that they don't know how to get set up. So some companies like, yeah, this is just how it is. We'll just continue to add features and add more customer service people. For me, it's like, yeah, we have to go back and trim the fat or rethink
Yeah.
with the knowledge that we have now how it should be. Yeah, there's different approaches to it. And mine was always, let's make it as easy as possible to try the product and get all the way to where you can run your business with it. There's so much that goes into it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that,
Well,
for
it
example,
sounds like it
migration.
it wasn't that you were the tech founder and you say, like a lot of tech founders do, "I don't wanna talk to salespeople. Let's make it no touch," right? The
Yeah.
product is great enough. I don't wanna deal with people. I'm introverted or whatever. Maybe that was it, maybe it wasn't. And it
No,
w
it's definitely a part of it.
Oh, okay, good, there we go. And then the other thing is your competitors, you had established big competitors, name brands.
Yep.
They probably had a very sales-oriented motion on their old crappy software, very pushy, all that kind of thing. So you were in contrast to them, right? Like,
Yep.
"Hey, it's cheap, you can use it, try it if you like it," which, it's a stymie on the big guys who can't do that kind of thing. But I find that the discipline of founders intensely solving the root problems in product and conversion, onboarding and marketing and everything, and solving them deeply, right? Every year, do the deeper thing. The VC funded guys can't do that. They just keep piling on these unhealthy layers of fat,
Well,
and they
this
never
is
get to the core problem. So that's why
yeah.
these 100, by the time you get to 100 million, it's unfixable if you
Yeah,
raise
I
too much
mean,
money.
it's definitely a very difficult problem, right? For VC-backed companies, they have to grow very quickly.
Mhm.
So they don't have this like slow cook
Space.
time
Yeah.
to become fully baked. This is what I feel was the main difference between this company and the previous one that took VC funding and had
Yeah.
about 2 years to get to the point where it can raise another round. And it was showing some signs of growth, but it just wasn't on that track,
Yeah.
and just had to shut down because it ran out of money. Being bootstrapped, I could take all the time in the world. And to be completely honest, for several years, I thought this would never become more than a side project. And I kept it running because I liked the customers and I felt like I was helping them run their business, which, made me feel good. But
Yeah.
it was a small side business, bringing in 5, 6K a month, which is nice, but it's not something that you can like hire a bunch of people and spend a bunch on ads in order to grow. Yet it gave me the time to fully flesh out the onboarding, the different features, everything that makes the product stand out in the market.
Well, this is
Um,
in contrast to a lot of founders, especially VC-backed founders, but a lot of bootstrap founders say you gotta go all in, and you had this as a side project, maybe as a maybe quit my day job and get some passive income kind of project. I don't know if it sounded like that, or did you have hopes that, eventually this would turn into a compounding machine that would change an industry kind of thing? But you kept this in that space of side job and lots of effort, didn't pay much for it, but you did that until it proved its worth.
yeah, the thing is, I really learned how strong the B2B SaaS business model is with this
Yeah,
company. Just because I kept going and churn was low and I was adding a little bit of revenue every month.
yeah,
Before you know it, it took a few years, but before you know it, it gets to the point it's like, okay, I can quit my day job. And a few months later, I can hire my first employee. And it just keeps going and going
yeah,
and going. That's the beauty of recurring revenue and yeah, the compounding there.
yeah. Which
You
everybody
don't see
talks
it when you're
about.
in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's everybody talks about, but it's way harder than it looks, and it always takes longer to get the
Yep.
flywheel moving. And,
That's right.
Five Elms bought this flywheel that they know they could go from 3 to 30 million, right?
Yep.
By
That's our goal.
just improving and doing more. And growth equity isn't like VC. It's not rocket fuel. It's really
Yep.
practical. Maybe the business is profitable right now and they're very disciplined about what they're going to do, but they're serious about growing it to the next level, adding employees and so forth. So, could you imagined that this would have stayed that like, okay, I can be independent. I don't have to work for somebody, which a lot of engineers think about, right? The independence, that set it and forget it passive income business? Or did you have a vision that, okay, there's 50,000 of these martial arts and all these other gyms out there, if right? 100, 500,
Yeah.
5,000, something like that, this could be interesting. What were you thinking about when it was still in your spare time?
Yeah. So definitely I had aspirations when I started. that I would be able to build a large product generating
There
a
you go.
significant revenue. But very quickly, I realized that I can build a product doesn't mean that anybody is going to find it or use it, right? And I had no idea if I'm ever going to be able to figure that part out. So I stuck with it, but I just put it on the side. It's something that I work on when I get the urge to, or when a customer reaches out and they say something it's like, "Oh, you're right. I can easily fix this for you
And you
or
coded
make
it
this
yourself,
better."
like,
Yeah,
right?
I
Yeah.
was the only engineer until I want to say 6 years in. So that was again one of my or the company's superpower, that we didn't need engineers until we had significant revenue already, because
Yeah.
engineer salaries are some of the most it's the biggest cost center for most tech
Yeah.
startups at the beginning. But yeah, after realizing that it's not growing the way that I thought it would, I tempered those expectations and kind of shelved it for a good chunk of time until it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I can potentially grow it to, I want to say 20,000 in monthly recurring. This was my goal
Yeah.
when I quit my day job in 2019. If I can get it to 20, I have a lovely salary. I don't have to work for
Yeah.
anybody. I wasn't thinking about exiting or anything like that. We reached that milestone the next year, and then double that the next year, and then
Yeah.
double that the next year. And before you know it, I'm starting to talk with private equity, and my goalposts kept moving,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
didn't
of
have that
course.
aspiration at the beginning, but I'm starting to see a potential outcome that I didn't know could exist. But now I see a direct line trajectory into it. Yeah, it's kind of grew organically in my
Yeah, and
head.
you built this with the right DNA, right? Great product, sticky product, right? And then efficient customer acquisition. Let's talk about your journey of learning to go do the customer acquisition side,
Yeah,
sales and marketing, go to market,
yeah,
all of that kind of thing. So you have a great product that people love. Welcome to the software game. You got to go find customers
right,
efficiently,
right.
right? And eventually you did. What was your main approach and how did you get there?
Yeah, so we tried a bunch of different things, and when I say we, I mean me. I don't know why I have the tendency. I usually say
The
we.
bootstrapper
uh,
we. I love it. Yeah.
no, the
Yeah.
company, right?
Yeah.
We the
Yeah, yeah.
company tried a bunch
Yeah.
of different things. I tried content marketing. I tried ads for a while in different channels, from social to Google ads, email marketing, and it seemed nothing really moved the needle at the beginning. I might get a couple of customers from something that I worked on for weeks. I'm like, this is not scalable at all, right? I'm not making a dent here. But you can look back and definitely see how those initial attempts put the seeds in the ground for what would later
Yeah.
come. Our main acquisition channel, once we started becoming more established, was through organic SEO traffic. So the initial content marketing efforts were definitely what laid the foundation for that. And once I started getting consistent with that, and my first hire was actually content marketing person.
Ah, right.
Yeah, somebody that used to write for us freelance, and I'm like, what would it take for you to do this full time? In retrospect, that was a big change for us. Once we started doing that consistently every week, every day, we upgraded to a new level. We also found the brand voice, or how to present ourselves, how to position ourselves when speaking to customers. And that came from having those hundreds of conversations with customers. At the beginning, the way that I would phrase it is completely different to how it's presented now on the website. I don't even remember what we said there, but I can find old
Yeah, you can
screenshots.
go
I'm like,
back.
wow,
The
I can't
evolution
believe
of
this
the
is,
story.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so
So
naive, so naive.
well, that's
And
okay.
it
That's
took,
how people do it, right? You get out there and you have the conversation, you think you're everything to everybody, and then you
yeah,
realize
but what I'm
the
saying,
100th
it took,
conversation and everybody says, "Well, I've already got one of these. You're this to me," right? And then
yeah,
at some point you go, "Okay, we can be that to you."
you're
I'll
this to
reflect
me,
your words.
and or they talk about a certain thing. It's like, oh, interesting. I never thought about this way. I always call it that thing because I'm
Yes.
coming at it from the technical perspective or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And it took us time to figure that out, and also what content resonates and
Yeah.
what content helps Google
Yeah.
bring people to us, because those are all different things, right? What the customers need and what the search engine wants, and like putting everything together. over time, it's just consistency and trial and error to get to that point. But once you build it, I know people say SEO is dead and AI will replace everything. It's still the strongest channel by
Yeah.
far for the company,
Right.
bringing over 50% of the new leads every month.
Yeah.
So that was a channel that I definitely unlocked. And then I started understanding how to acquire customers in ways that I never thought about before. For example,
Well, let's
partnerships.
finish on SEO here. So SEO
Okay,
is a classic tactic for frugal technical founders
that's right.
because SEO is kind of technical, right? There's a math problem, and there's spreadsheets, and there's keywords, and there's a waterfall, and all of that kind of thing. But SEO also masks something in when you make a great product in a tight vertical market, it masks the word of mouth that starts to spread when somebody says, at the conference, "Oh, I hate this software." "Well, I'm using this. I love it." Right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they come in organically. So how much of your SEO was on your branded keywords, right? Eventually.
Definitely now it's quite a lot.
Yeah.
At the beginning, we didn't really have a brand. As I
Okay.
mentioned,
So
we
yeah,
actually changed our brand in the middle, and our customers are not really the type to go to conferences too much. Even though
they're
now,
doing it until 8 o'clock at night in their
yeah, even though
dojo.
there are other channels, so not conferences, but they go to competitions, for example,
I
right?
see. Right. Right.
And our team now goes to those competitions as well and represents the brand.
There you go.
Those are things that I learned over time. But yeah, definitely as a technical founder, SEO appealed to me, just like you said, because you can approach it as an engineering problem to some degree. And I also had background in writing. So I've
Ah,
written for magazines and blogs for many, many
yeah.
years. So I just had to sharpen my skills in this specific B2B domain, which is a different kind of writing, but it's not that different, right?
Right.
So there's some transferable skills there.
And it's evergreen, so the flywheel compounds. So as your
Exactly.
Google strength improves and word of mouth kind of multiplies on top of that, right? You could see a steady increase in traffic and conversions and so forth here. Were there any inflection points in that that happened, or was that
Well,
in your organic inbound?
yeah, the rebrand was definitely scary.
Yeah.
You're changing domains for the website. The main concern is that you're going to lose search traffic, and
Yes.
there's no avoiding that you will take a hit for a little bit. We planned it very carefully, and eventually, it took a few months. We were able to recover to where we were, but then we started getting SEO traffic for new terms because we
Yeah.
rebranded into the gym industry.
Yeah.
That was definitely an inflection point for us. Not only that, we started creating content around that because now that we are branded that way, it made much more sense. We built the pillars around the different verticals that we serve, like gyms, yoga studios, martial arts. We started expanding those pillars. Everything became more systemized over time. I
Right.
used to just, when the mood hit me, I would write an article for the blog.
And
Now
you
it's a
still had
whole
energy,
system.
right, that day?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But now it's a whole system. It's like for each content
Yeah.
vertical, we have a hub and a pillar articles, and yeah, it's a
Yeah.
whole thing.
And so in this process, not after private equity later, you went multi-vertical, right? You start off with
Yep.
martial arts, but you went gymnastics and yoga studios and the rest. What percentage of the business when you sold the company, what percentage was not martial arts?
I would say it was about 70% martial arts businesses and
Yeah.
30% everything else. And 2 years prior, 2022, when we rebranded, it was about 95 martial arts and 5%
Okay.
everything else.
So
So
you had different content at the top of the funnel, probably different pages that spoke to
yep,
gymnastics, gym owners. Was the product different for these different verticals, or was
yep,
it
uh,
effectively the same? Oh, was it
yep.
really?
As the
Wow.
team grew and we had more resources, we started honing in on the use cases of the different verticals.
Yes, of course.
For example, gyms programming is a big thing, especially for programs like CrossFit and High Rocks
Uh-huh.
now is becoming popular. But just HIIT training, so high interval training, those have their own tools and specific items in the
Yes, of
software
course.
now that we
Yeah.
didn't used to have. Martial arts definitely has a bunch from the grading and the ranks and the training that's built around that. yoga is very focused on booking as the main mechanism for getting people into class. There's a bunch of small permutation. Gymnastics has the whole
Yes.
kids programs, which is massive, and kids
Yeah.
have their different evaluation systems that that they get star rankings in skills. This is all a way to retain kids.
Yeah.
Most of gymnastics is very early age until
Yeah.
the late teens. So yeah, each one of those verticals required a slightly different approach. The core is very similar, but there's specific things for that vertical to be happy with your product versus
Right.
others in the industry that target them specifically. You need to address those small variations.
Well, I'm sure Five Elms, when they acquired you, you could say it's not just martial arts. See, we have the traction growing in these
Yeah,
others.
for sure.
Uh, we're multi-vertical, right? You're not
Yep.
horizontal, but you're multi-vertical, right? And you have
Yep.
these pillars, as people say in this space, whether you're into it or Gymdesk. You have the pillars of content and go-to-market and messaging and product and
Yep.
P&Ls, and SaaS metrics are different for each one of these, right?
Right.
Those kind of things. Do you think that's one of the strengths of your business? You sometimes it's a slippery slope, and a lot of
For sure.
bootstrap founders get stuck. The signal goes down, it goes watered down. You're many things to many people now. You're no longer the
Yeah.
martial arts one, something like that. For instance, if I was also for VC funded founders,
Yeah.
that's a whole different world. And if I speak 2 languages every day, then people wouldn't trust me, something like that. Same with Rob at
Yep.
Tiny Seed. But do you think that was a successful strategy looking back?
Yeah. What I
Okay.
think helped us a lot is that we really honed in and focused on martial arts for a good 5, 6 years, which kind of laid the template for how complete vertical integration would look like. So
Yeah.
if we now we're expanding into the gym space,
Hmm.
right, and we're starting to have serious conversations about gyms that already use the system. It's like, what is missing for you to get to 100%?
Hmm.
And we can recognize, yeah, the cross interface with martial arts is about 80 to 90%. There's only
Yeah.
10% difference. So
Yeah.
that means that this is a vertical that will work for us. But if we go, I don't know, I remember a golf course reached out and asked if we can potentially customize the software for that. And I started talking to them and I realized they need a lot more that we don't do right now. So this is maybe too far. But the yoga studio space, gymnastics, those are all businesses that we already had customers from those verticals using us. So I
Yeah.
could speak to them directly and see what are the gaps and if it made sense to focus on that as a distinct vertical that we serve. Um,
Well, I could see why Five Elms appreciated this. Low churn, great product, the antidote to the big legacy providers who are raising
right.
prices and the product hasn't changed in 10 years and very sales forward and so forth. And, compounding growth and profitable and adding verticals, right? That's all catnip to,
Yeah,
the
it's catnip,
investors who
and
think about that. Yeah, the next phase.
it's a
But you were
narrative that
getting tired.
yeah, it's a narrative that took me a while to build up and understand that, yeah, all those small things are actually what private equity really appreciates. And yes, I was getting tired. One of the questions that I get often is why didn't I stay on for a couple more years? I
Double
got
it.
to 5
Yeah.
or 10
Yeah.
million in ARR and sold then. It's like you would had such a much bigger exit. I'm like, yeah, but
I would
this
have
was
asked you that
already
question.
enough.
Right. Yeah.
This was already enough, but and I was pretty burnt out at this point. I was burnt out 2 years before I sold. Just that I could see the trajectory to where it would make sense to sell, and for me, that would be enough,
This was your
right?
line, I guess. You had
Yeah.
set your line. Yeah. Now, was your line I'm curious about this. Was your line about 30,000,000, of guaranteed in the bank? Because you have, with lower multiples now, you could have had to double the business, right, to get to your 30,000,000. Or was it, "Let's get to 3,000,000 and this level of pain," or whatever in your mind, and, whatever the price is, I'll go? Like, which was your line?
Um, yeah, from the conversations that I had with private equity, I felt like 10x at 3 million was doable.
Yeah.
I had enough conversations around those figures to think that this was doable. And it's funny because it really depends on who you talk to. I remember having a conversation 2 months before we started the process. I was visiting LA with my wife to visit her family there, and I met with somebody who was representing a private equity firm, but used to be an executive at one of our biggest competitors. So he knew the industry inside and out. And I thought for sure this guy would get what we're doing. He was interested in talking about the potential acquisition. We met for coffee. And at the end of it was a very good conversation. At the end of the conversation, he asked me, okay, what kind of outcome are you aiming for? And I told him, yeah, I'm looking for about 10x. And he was like, oh, I don't know if that's possible for you.
Our private equity
Um,
parents won't let us do that, is probably what
yeah,
he was thinking,
yeah,
right.
for sure. That's the implication there. He said, "Yeah, I think you can get maybe 5x." And I'm like, "I don't know. I've been speaking to quite a few firms." He was very adamant that this is like the cap for this company at this point. By the way, it did give me pause there. It's like this guy
Yeah, yeah,
surely he
uh-huh.
knows what he's talking about. But yeah, it really depends on who you talk to. So 5Ms is they have over 2 billion in assets under management, which is a
Yes,
completely different story to a private equity that has 50 million or a search fund that has just enough for one investment. And I spoke to all of them,
yeah.
and their calculations are different. 5 ounce is the potential growth. They're not buying for value, they're buying for outcome, which is a completely different conversation. And I think even today, yeah, AI definitely scrambled the cards. It makes investors cautious. It makes everybody uncertain of how things are going to look in a year or two. So now, right now, it's probably not a good time to sell. I actually, I did a talk to the Tiny Seed founders last week about this very
Oh,
topic,
fun.
and this is what one of the questions that came out. It's like, do you think you would have had this outcome right now with everything that's going on with AI? And the honest answer there is that I have no idea. It's like it's so uncertain right now. I think it's still possible, but it's also quite likely that right now, found private equity firms and other investors would be like, I want to wait to see how AI unfolds before I make an investment like this. So it might be a holding pattern for some companies looking to exit right now. I think this AI hype is not going to continue for that much longer. I think we're already at
Or
the other side
you're
of the
heading over
hill.
the end. Yeah, yeah,
We passed the peak, and now we're starting to see the cracks. The promises of the AI companies are not exactly what we've been given, and people are starting to resent AI to some degree, myself included. So I think we will eventually land at some point because AI is an incredible tool.
mhm,
But is it what the artificial super intelligence we were promised? I don't think so. It's not really replacing people; it's augmenting people.
yeah,
And eventually this will die down, and SaaS, which is a very consistent and proven business model, will continue to be valuable. If you look at the big SaaS companies, which took a massive beating in the stock market a few months ago, they posted their quarterlies and they're still incredible, incredible
yeah,
growth, incredible revenue.
mhm,
This still has to be worth something, right?
yeah.
That's kind of my take on it.
Okay, well, briefly, when you sold your company, you started taking these calls with the inbound, everybody asking, "Can we acquire you? Can we have a coffee?" All that. You started taking calls, you learned the game, you learned that this is very diverse. There's all kinds of different buyers out there that nobody ever talks about. And then you just said, "I think I can get my number," and you started a process. Did you hire somebody to
Yeah.
help you sell the company and shop the company?
Yeah.
And,
Um,
briefly, how did that
I
go?
Yeah, I engaged a sell side broker called Discretion Capital. The lead person there is Einar Volest, who is one of the founders at Tiny Seed. So I already knew
Yeah,
him for the accelerator.
okay.
And I spoke to him about, yeah, I'm preparing for an exit. What do you think? And decided that it would be a good idea. In retrospect, I would not recommend anybody selling their first company to do it on their own. Both having a good broker and a good M&A lawyer is just a must have. I listened to a couple of podcasts from founders who sold without a lawyer, and I'm like, I don't understand how that is even possible. They have no idea what they signed on, is
Right.
my take. But It
So
was a
have a great
massive
lawyer
help.
and get help to sell your company because it's so
Yeah,
complicated, and
it's
there
complicated
there are
and not
pros
just
on the other
complicated.
side of the table, right? And
Yeah, there's pros.
yeah,
That's exactly it. The information asymmetry between private equity and the founder selling their company for the first time is massive. So we didn't start at the offer that we got at the end. We didn't start there. Anar and discretion helped me get there. We had a
mm,
negotiation process there, and they were able to ask for things that I didn't think were even possible as a
ah.
first time exiting founder.
So you can
So
look at
yeah,
even that and say they were worth the check I
for
wrote
sure.
to them, right?
For
They
sure.
they
Just for
literally
that,
did proof
it
from here to
was
here. Yeah,
worth everything else, and
yeah,
it continued to be a massive resource for the due diligence process and the
yeah.
closing process. Yeah.
Which I'm sure was kind of a nightmare. You were already burned out. You had, things working, that was compounding, was growing, even still, but I'm sure that was crazy stressful.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to expect from the due diligence process. I went through due diligence for VC, but this is a completely different animal. They're not just evaluating you for investment, they're basically taking apart every element of your business to make sure there's no liability issues, taxes issues, structural issues. As
Prizes.
a founder, yeah,
Yeah,
uh, you sign a bunch of representations and warranties, which is a very technical and very arduous legal document that just bakes everything into it.
mhm.
I remember we had an issue with the taxation structure of the business that you know, uh, I never thought would be an actual issue. We were an LLC initially, and then we took an S corp election, and then we joined Tiny Seed. They took some
C
equity,
corp, yeah.
so I had to revoke the S corp election. S corp cannot have multiple types of shares, but apparently there was a small gap there. So we joined the accelerator,
Oh.
and I filed for revocation, which came in about a month and a half later. So this became a sticking point, and I'm like, what's the problem here? Even the other side's lawyers couldn't really explain, but they said you might have been a C corp for that period of time. I'm like, how is that possible? So things like this, you
Uh-huh.
can't really expect, and they become things that, first of all, you have no control over at that point. You just have to wait for those things to resolve.
Yeah.
And yeah, that part was definitely stressful when you
'Cause
start the process.
Elon, I'm sensing you're kind of a control guy and an
Um,
independent guy, and, don't too much that's connected in other people's control is probably out of your comfort zone.
It's not exactly that. At the beginning of the process, you kind of tell yourself, okay, this could not happen just as well as it could close. Don't get invested, but it's almost impossible in practice. As
Mhm.
you get through the due diligence and you're halfway there. Due diligence is brutal. And you tell yourself, it's like, I would hate for this to fall apart at this point. So you're becoming extremely invested, even though you told yourself at the beginning, don't get too invested, right? The other aspect of it is that you're selling your business. This is the only thing for you. For the private equity firm, this is one of 10 deals they're currently looking into,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes they would disappear for days, and just
Oh,
because they were busy with other stuff. But for me, it looks like they're playing mind games with me. They're using different tactics. But no, it's just that there's a big asymmetry there. For me, it's the only business that I would sell probably. Maybe
yes.
another one in 10 years, but this is it. So yeah, you do become very invested emotionally, and that leads to the other things where you get stressed when, you know, things could tank the deal and you have no control over it.
So your company grew and profits grew while you were doing this due diligence and in the process. Did, they find things that they were able to put against their initial offer and give you less of a number? Sometimes they call that
Um,
retrading and so forth, or did you end up with
yeah,
about what you said?
yeah. I mean, they found things. Not really. I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it.
Yes,
I
of course.
feel like they
They
came
look
in.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, they looked for it. That's the best way to say it. The thing is, yes, they did put in a very strong offer from me. But I felt like halfway through, maybe they felt like they overpaid a little bit. And now that I'm exclusive with them, this is their opportunity to potentially lower the price a little bit.
Yes, right.
Yeah. put the squeeze a little bit. And
Yeah.
I have to say, I did not appreciate it. Luckily, I had a very good broker and lawyer on my side that made sure to remind me that they can't actually change it unless there's a good reason. They can't just,
Yep.
they try to get me to agree to lower it.
Oh.
They try different tricks,
Yeah.
and I would go back to my broker and lawyer. It's like, is this a real thing or is it just? And they're like, yeah, they don't have any real basis here. It's only if you agree with their opinion. I'm like, okay, then we can keep going. And by the way, this didn't end at close. I'm on the fence how much to open this, but there were
Yeah.
instances later when they tried to claw back a little bit in ways that I didn't fully appreciate. They
Yeah.
they didn't in the end, but they did make it uncomfortable for me for a while where it's like, "Oh, you might have to pay us back a little bit," or I had a part of the cash amount was as a seller note,
Yeah.
and there was some later
Oh,
discussions
hold
on the
back.
seller note.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even a holdback, so it was completely free. We did have a holdback, but it was way
Okay.
smaller than the note. And yeah, they tried to tie it into future dealings of the business. The business wanted to do some additional M&A. I'm like, that's my deal. That's unrelated to what the business is doing now. This is in the past. We already signed that agreement, but they tried to make me believe that there is a way to change it. Again, I hate to do this. I have to go to my lawyer and verify what is actually possible, what is not possible. And in the end, I got everything that we agreed to, but I had to kind of fight for it a little bit,
Yeah.
which, yeah, that part I did not appreciate.
Can you say about how much you spent on legal fees through this? Some
Yeah,
people wanna be very frugal about it. You were a frugal founder, but,
yeah.
this was a
I
good
felt so.
investment for you. Yeah.
I definitely was frugal at the beginning, but at the time that we were selling, we had really strong profit margins. At that point, I understood well the value of good legal
Yeah.
representation. And yet, it wasn't as expensive as maybe I thought it would be. It was about 60K for the entire
Okay.
process in
Yeah.
legal fees. And I
Yeah,
had
very
an
frugal.
incredible lawyer. I'm going to give a shout out to Kaiser Wahab from the Wahab and Rivals office in New York. Incredible
Okay.
lawyer.
Excellent. Well, what a story here. Now you're out. Right? And I know you still have the tattoo on your arm and support this tribe and, your friends in the business and want to see them well. You have money in the business. You want to see that multiply.
Yep.
The second bite of the apple is going to go. But now you're on the other side of it and starting a new company and all of that. Is this life after with a big prize, living in Tokyo? Is it everything you'd expect? Or
So
what didn't you expect here?
it's a mix. I kept working full time on the business for a year and a half after the exit. And finally, November last year, moved away from the day to day. And I had, I want to say, 3 or 4 months of absolute nothing.
Wow.
And I enjoyed that so much.
But you said, "You can call me," but they never called.
Yeah. I mean, I did have weekly conversations with the CEO just to stay in touch. But yeah, basically nobody called, which I thought was actually quite surprising. I thought for sure they would have some
Yeah, isn't
question,
that funny? Yeah.
but apparently they're good.
Yeah.
So I had 3 4 months of absolute bliss, just doing nothing. We traveled to Costa Rica. We went to Europe last year, and I started this new company now.
Yeah.
And I'm back to grinding 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some days I feel like I've made a mistake. It's like I remembered what it was like
And here you are again.
close to the
Yeah.
exit when the company was already doing well and everything was solid. I forgot what the grind was like at the beginning and I just jumped into it maybe too fast, is how I
Yeah.
feel on some days. Yeah, it's a mix.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm trying this new thing out. I wanted to, even though I have mixed feelings about AI, I wanted to try and do at least take a
Yeah,
shot
join the
at.
AI revolution.
Yeah.
Right, there you go.
So I'm building a product in AI vision in the real estate vertical, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. Again, once you go back into founder mode, at least for somebody like me, it's really hard to turn it off. You always feel like if you just push a little bit more, if you do a little bit more, and you see all those opportunities, then
I
you will make it
literally
a
was thinking
success.
about that this morning, which is I can't turn off that switch, which is,
Yeah,
that's our unfortunate our habit. Maybe it's our DNA. And you're a black belt jujitsu guy, right?
yeah,
Not like, okay, you hit it and then you stop, right?
yep,
There's a
yep. Even
continuous
though,
game. Yes.
yeah, even though I have not been training recently, at the end, so it actually started with the sell process. During the
Mm.
sell process, I just like I could not focus on anything else. So
Mhm.
I stopped training. The schedule changed at the gym that I was training in here, and I moved and couldn't find a good place to train. I visited a couple of spots, and
Mhm.
the vibe just isn't. At this
Yeah,
point in my training journey, it's like I have very specific idea of what I want my gym to
of
look
course.
like. I'm not
Yeah,
going every day to the beginners class and just doing
yeah.
all the warm ups, all that stuff. I'm tired of that. So for now, I'm just not training very much. Even though a buddy of mine who lives here invited me to train next Thursday, and I'm going to take him up on it and at a new place. But yeah, even for black belts, it's possible to like downscale eventually. Maybe I'll learn how to do that with startups at some point.
Even I face this. I'm older than you. Can you imagine what your life is going to be like in 10 or 20 years? You have a new foundation and new space and new independence, but you're in Japan and playing around with this and have learned a lot of lessons. What do you think life's going to be like in 10 years? Are you still going to be playing around with software or doing something else
Um,
crazy?
yeah, I think this is probably, at least for now, my last stab at building. What I've
Okay.
really been enjoying is having conversations with early stage founders and helping them out either as a mentor or as an angel
Yeah.
investor. Yeah, that's something that I've really taken a shine to. I've already made several angel investments since the exit,
Oh, there you go.
and I might be joining on as a mentor to actually the original VC that invested in my previous company is a Japanese VC based here in Tokyo. I've been having conversations with them. They asked me if I would be interested in being a mentor for their portfolio companies, and I'm currently kind of testing the waters there. So there's a good
Oh,
chance that
great.
this is how it's going to look like for me.
Well, that works for me.
Um,
So that's my version of it after 30 years
oh,
in the
okay.
grind and,
Yeah,
not being able to sit still for an hour, myself, right?
yeah,
I've
yeah,
had my time and, now I'm back at it. So that's great. And Ron, what advice do you have most often for practical founders who are starting out and look at your journey and surprised how hard it was and how well it worked out? What advice do you give most often to practical founders that you can share with
yeah.
the
So I think
audience here?
I have a lot of conversations with founders that are in what I call the grind zone of
Mm,
bootstrapping. So they have some revenue and maybe they have a couple of employees, but everything always feels tight. They don't have enough to do everything that they want. And they're like, should I raise? What should I do? It's like I feel like I'm grinding. I'm not making any progress. From my experience, and I've seen this with several companies already, things really turn the corner once you hit about 1 million in annual recurring. I know a few people that if they just wait 6 months or even a year, they will get there with their current pace. Right now, they're feeling the grind and it's like it's wearing them down. Maybe I should raise a small round. Maybe I should do this and that. It's like, no, just hold. You're doing good. Once you get to that benchmark, you will have enough breathing room that you will be able to improve your quality of company management, let's call it. One of the biggest unlocks for me, like midlife in the company, was bring on an operations manager, which for a long time I was like, should I bring somebody? I'm only spending 30 minutes, an hour a day on this, just renewing registrations, dealing with
mhm,
taxes, doing the payroll. But once I brought that person, that was a massive unlock for me. I could
mm,
once you find the right person, just give
yeah,
them so much that you don't want to do in the business and get back to the fun parts is how I would call it. And yeah, for most companies, this is around like 750,000 to 1 million, where that it makes sense to have somebody full time in that role. And you start working on bigger strategic things and your company starts to accelerate. So my advice is yes, the slow, boring part in the middle for bootstrapping is very difficult from a mental standpoint. You
mhm,
feel like you're treading water, but it's just piling up. You just need
Yeah.
to wait a little bit and believe in the process. None of it is it's a waste. You feel like if you had more money, you could go faster, maybe, but the time that you're spending right now is actually very, very valuable. So yeah, just stick
Man,
with it. It takes
yeah, that's
time,
great.
but you will get there. That's the advice I've been given a lot recently.
Yeah, on the way to 1 million, which is generally product market fit 1.0 for
Yep.
B2B SaaS, something plus or minus, depends on your price point. Lower price points comes earlier, but yeah, it feels like you're pushing the rock uphill and so forth. But if you can see the compounding, right, the flywheel really starts to move. And even at 2 or 3 million, that's where private equity comes in and says, we can see your flywheel. That's
Right.
really valuable. So
Yep.
if you can get that going, hang in there is what you're saying. Survive long enough to get that flywheel
Survive
going.
long enough to see the fruits of your labor is basically the line. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. What an incredible journey, Eran. And, uh, congrats on your success. And, you kind of threaded the needle on a lot of these things, but we can see how hard it was and how intentional you were and how intense you had to be to make all this happen. So congratulations on that and best wishes for your next adventure.
Thank you so much, Greg. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm looking forward to more conversations in the future.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for watching this week's interview on the Practical Founders podcast. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Practical Founders YouTube channel to keep up with my weekly in-depth interviews with serious software founders who are building valuable software companies without big funding. You can check out my blog, all the podcast episodes, and information about my Practical Founders CEO peer groups at practicalfounders.com, or message me on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. See you next week.